have Cassie Leitzke, who's a petty officer at our own Coast Guard sector here in San Francisco. She's a qualified VTS traffic manager. She was born in Olympia, Washington. She's lived in South Dakota, Idaho. She joined the Coast Guard in 2015. She went to boot camp in New Jersey, and then immediately following that, she went into the Operations Specialist A School in Petaluma, California. Her first unit was U.S. Coast Guard Stratton in Alameda, where she deployed on missions to the Arctic Circle and to the Galapagos. That sounds so much fun. She's been with VTS San Francisco since 2019 and is leaving for officer candidate school at the Coast Guard Academy in July. She likes to hike, learning new things, being on the water. She has a kayak, so maybe we could get her on the water with us sometime. Cassie, please take it away.
Thank you, Jonathan, for the introduction. I really appreciate it. I do have a kayak. It's out back. I haven't used it in a bit, but let me get this PowerPoint rolling for you guys. Okay, here we go. Okay. Yeah, so I'm currently at Vessel Traffic Service San Francisco, got qualified there in 2019. And right now I'm working with the sector's Waterways Management Division. So to get started, I just want to show you a quick video of what the Operations Center looks like. Here it is. Here we go.
Advice is a 1045. Roger, Solano. Tuck making all tone up patrolling bars greater than 600 gross tons approaching North Channel 1 and 2 for San Francisco 50 and sending to Alpha Bravo span. We'll now shift you over to Channel 13 and 14 for the remaining.
I hear it, but I don't see it.
To the Army Corps docks. Unit took you aboard the CMA CGM Centaurus is prepared at 56 outbound for C, Delta Echo and the
Getting the audio, but not the video, it seems.
That's interesting. Yeah, as soon as I went to the video, it said that it stopped sharing. So that's weird. I'm sorry, everybody. That never has happened to me before. I'll have to figure that out. Okay, well, we'll just keep going. And that's really odd. Okay, so I wanted to start off with if there's any questions at all, we'll kind of stop and pauses. There's quite a bit of information to cover. I'm just going to be doing a quick overview, mainly of common area like destinations, traffic routes, things of that nature. And I'll stop every now and again to answer any questions in the chat. So the first thing I want to go over, it's a Marine Safety Information Bulletin. This is MSIB 13 TAC 03, and this is specifically for board sports and kayak safety in the San Francisco Bay. So just going to read over it really quickly. So board sport related search and rescue cases are often strandings on the shoreline, on the bay, or at sea resulting from equipment failures, fatigue, injuries, strong currents, and or loss of wind. The Coast Guard strongly encourages recreational boaters and water sports enthusiasts to always wear your PFDs, carry a handheld VHF radio and flares in case of an emergency. Please mark your equipment with reflective tape to improve visibility in the event of a nighttime search, and notify someone you trust where you're going and when you plan to return. Additionally, board sport enthusiasts and kayakers should be particularly mindful of prevailing and forecasted wind, tides, and currents. And I saw you guys kind of looking at those and potential impacts on your ability to return safely. And please, label your kayaks with your name and telephone number so the Coast Guard can contact you if your gear does go adrift. So this is the most recent cases that the command center has presented for me. So maybe some of you might be familiar with these cases. Point Diablo, a kayaker was rescued in vicinity, reported by a passing charter fishing vessel. Severe hypothermia, disoriented, not properly dressed, damaged cell phone, no radio, and required medical attention. Another one at the Golden Gate Bridge, kiteboard, rescued by a ferry, severe hypothermia, lacerations, again, no cell or radio. And Oakland, hypothermia, no working cell phone or radio. So between October 2020 and January 2021, 19 cases involved adrift kayaks, sailboards, paddle, flotation devices, and none of these items were labeled with a phone number or a name. So it's really crucial that we are labeling these kayaks with your phone number and name. That way we aren't, looking and scared that, someone is out there missing, and we can contact that person. Hey, there's this kayak that we found, but what happened? Oh no, like my kayak got taken off by the wind, or I've been looking for it, something like that. So we know there's not a person attached to that. Okay. All right. I continue with the MSIB. We're going to get into more interesting stuff soon, not as dry. So just bear with me here through this, these MSIBs. So maneuvering small human and wind-powered craft in close proximity to large commercial vessels can present significant safety and navigational hazards. The Coast Guard frequently responds to incidents involving hazardous interactions between recreational users and large commercial vessels transiting shipping lanes and navigational channels, or approaching or departing a berth. Recreational crafts such as kiteboards, stand-up paddleboards, wind, surfboards, sailboards, and kayaks are considered vessels for regulatory purposes when operating beyond their parameters. Okay. And so this is going into Rule 9, which we'll kind of go in a little bit, the rules of the road. So just really ensuring that you are staying clear of those large vessels that are maneuvering in the bay. It's very difficult to see kayaks, and I know as an operator at VTS, the pilots can definitely feel a little frustrated when they know that the kayak's out there, but they can't see them and they can't get in contact with them. So while Rule 9 is in effect, Rule 18, which prescribes responsibilities between vessels, does not apply. So this means that all sailing vessels and any other vessels less than 20 meters in length do not have the right of way over a deep draft vessel in the San Francisco Bay. Okay. Any questions on the MSIB in particular? Well, I might be answered, like your questions might be answered later on in the presentation. But we're going to be going over to what channels the VTS monitors. I think I got a chat here. Awesome. Okay. Okay, so, oops. Okay, so this is kind of like a depiction of what channels VTS is monitoring. So we're monitoring 13, 16, 12, and 14. But we are using 12 and 14 for communication. So we have two different operators. The offshore operator is mainly listening to channel 12. They're also listening to channel 14. And the inshore operator is only listening to channel 14. So if you're in this red zone and you want to get in contact with VTS, which I'll explain a little bit later, or you want to listen to the traffic, you're going to be monitoring channel 14. If for some reason you're going up the coast here or you're out here offshore, you're going to be listening to channel 12, and that's going to give you the most up-to-date traffic picture for your area. Any questions on the channels? Okay, I'm going to keep moving forward then. Okay, so we're going to go over a quick exercise. You're more than welcome to grab a piece of paper, a pencil, or a pen. I'm just going to go over what you might hear on the radio. Okay, so this is what you might hear. So let's say there's a downbound vessel. They're approaching the west span of the Richmond Bridge. Okay, so you might hear this. Is everybody ready? It's hard to see here. Okay. So you'll hear traffic, Unit 20, Universal Bangkok, west span, downbound, Delta Echo for Anchorage 9. Okay, you'll hear that, and then traffic will answer back. Roger, Unit 20, Universal Bangkok, west span of the Richmond Bridge, downbound for Anchorage 9, and sends Delta Echo span of the Oakland Bay Bridge. Okay, that's something you might hear on channel 14. Now let's take a look at it. Okay, now using the chat, what was the unit number and the ship's name? Oh, I just gave it away. Okay, what about the bridge span intention? And anybody can unmute if you want, if anybody remembers the bridge span intention.
Delta Echo span.
Good, awesome. Okay, and where was this vessel's destination?
Anchorage 9.
Anchorage 9, awesome, cool.
Can you explain to people what unit means?
Yep, absolutely. So the unit is just the pilot designator. So unit 20 is, I don't know what his name is. I don't have a pilot book near me, but you know, that could be Pete Croft. I don't know, somebody like that. And that's just his designator. So he's on that ship, he's piloting that vessel. So if you want to get in contact with that vessel, you would start with unit 20, Universal Bangkok. If you just say Universal Bangkok, the pilot is probably not going to catch that. They're on so many ships all the time. They're going to hear, if they hear unit 20 though, they're going to respond. Okay. And so this is kind of what it would look like. The smiley face is, oh yeah.
Universal Bangkok would be the name of the ship that we see on the hull of the ship, or?
That's correct. Yes. And I have a picture of the Universal Bangkok in the next slide so you guys can see what it looks like. So this is kind of the route that it would take. It's not going to be on land, but the smiley face kind of went crazy there. So it's going to go west span of the Richmond Bridge downbound through Delta Echo down to Anchorage 9.
So I thought you said that the west span of the Richmond Bridge?
Yep, absolutely. A lot of ships that are downbound are going to make a report of what bridge span intention they're going to be using for the Oakland Bay Bridge. So they'll make like a position report pretty much. They're pretty much telling us, hey, this is unit 20. I'm on the Universal Bangkok. We're at the west span of the Richmond Bridge. We're downbound for Anchorage 9 and we intend the Delta Echo span.
Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry, what does Delta Echo span means again?
Yeah, and we'll go over that in a couple slides. Delta Echo is just the span of the bridge. So it's this span right here. This is the Delta Tower and then the Echo Tower. And then between it is just the span. So we call it the Delta Echo span.
Got it.
Okay, I got another one for you, a different situation. Let's go to the next one. Oops.
I have a question about the Richmond Bridge, since you mentioned the west span. According to the chart, big ships can't go through the east span, and usually you don't see them go through there, but sometimes they do. Are you going to talk about that, or can you quickly address that?
Sure. It just a lot of the times we do see vessels, especially large vessels, going through the west span, just because they have a little bit more clearance there, or not clearance, a little bit. It's less hazardous. It's more of an open area for them to make their approach. And if you do see a vessel going through the east span, it's probably because there's some type of conflict. There might be a vessel downbound or some type of marine event that they're trying to avoid. So it just depends on the pilot and the circumstances in that moment.
Okay.
What does downbound mean?
It just means that they're heading south, downbound. Okay. Any other questions? I'm going to move on to the next one, and I'm sure there'll be questions on that one too. It's very similar. Okay, so this is something you might hear. Oh, and there's the Universal Bangkok. Okay. All right. So the next one would sound traffic, unit 36, ATB Sea Reliance. West span of the Richmond Bridge, outbound for sea, vessel intends a deep water traffic lane. Okay, what was the unit number and the ship name?
Unit 36.
ATB Sea Reliance.
Awesome. Okay, and what was the outbound lane intention?
Deep water lane.
Deep water lane, good. And where was the vessel's destination?
C.
Yep, outbound for sea, perfect. So they're coming down, they're gonna round Point Blunt there, use the deep water traffic lane, and then go outbound for sea. Okay, any questions on this specific type of transit? Going outbound for sea in the deep water lane.
And just to point out that they would be going through Southampton Shoal Channel.
They would not be, since they're going down the westbound lane, they would not be going through Southampton Shoal. That would be towards the east span, yeah.
Okay.
So that is one of the few things when, as a kayaker, you cross over from Alcatraz to Angel Island. This is one of the few areas where you really can't see a ship, a downbound ship. How do I contact traffic to ask, is there a ship coming the next 45, 60 minutes that I'm going to take to get from Alcatraz to Angel Island? Are you going to address that later?
Yeah, absolutely. I will address that. Thank you for that question.
Perfect. Thanks.
Any more questions about this certain situation? Okay, I'm moving on. Okay, and there is not the ATBC Reliance, but the Hope Reliance.
Actually, it maybe unrelated, but on your chart you had Blossom Rock.
Mhm.
How big of a deal is it for big ships?
I mean, it's a pretty big deal. I'm not exactly sure what the depth is there of the rock,
Yeah.
but I mean, the ship's not going to go over it, especially if they're a large vessel. They
All
usually
right.
do a round turn around it.
Right. Thanks.
Okay, so these are the Oakland Bay Bridge spans. Okay, so you know, earlier we were talking about Delta Echo span. If a ship is approaching Delta Echo span downbound for Anchorage 9, this is where they'd be going. A lot of the times, if a ship is going down to Redwood City or even Anchorage 9, or there's a lot of traffic in the estuary here, they'll go Alpha Bravo. Smaller ships can go Charlie Delta. You'll see a lot of tug and tows or barges going through Gulf Hotel span. To go here, this is TI East moorings. So any questions about the bridge spans? And I can forward this PowerPoint out so you guys can have this as a reference because this is a good picture.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, no questions here. I see a chat here. Okay, awesome. Whoops. Okay, so here's some common locations. These are just the ones that, you know, I hear a lot on the radio. They might say a ship is along, you know, approaching, maybe a Beam Chrissy Fields approaching Anita Rock. You might hear, you know, Unit 36 ATBC Reliance, a beam Anita Rock inbound for Anchorage 9. That's something you might hear. It's right here. Blossom Rock, just right off San Francisco 39 there. Okay. Anchorage 9, a lot of vessels going to Anchorage 9. Okay, down here. Anchorage 7, this is an interesting one that you'll hear of because it's not a long-term anchorage. It's one that's used for only temporary or emergency situations. So a lot of the times you'll hear vessels, you know, at the west span right here, and they'll say, hey, I'm downbound. I'm going outbound for sea, but we're going to stop in Anchorage 7. We're going to unload stores. And then once we're complete, we'll be outbound for sea. And pretty much that just means, oopsie, sorry about that. Pretty much that just means they're going to be anchored here for maybe an hour or so, unloading some stores that the ship needs, like supplies, and then they'll be weighing their anchor and they'll be outbound for sea, and they'll resubmit a sail plan to VTS before departing Anchorage 7. So you'll know exactly where they're going before they even depart the anchorage.
Is there set language when they're leaving the anchorage that we should listen to?
You'll just hear like Unit 36 ATBC Reliance about to weigh anchor in Anchorage 7 outbound for sea. They'll just say weigh anchor or pulling up anchor or something to that effect. And they'll say specifically that they're departing the anchorage. Okay. You also have Anchorage 5 up here. A lot of tugs will go up there. ATBs will go up there and kind of, they'll just hang out here for a little bit if there's not berth space. And then they'll proceed into Richmond. A lot of the times you'll see a lot of tow adjustments out in Anchorage 5. Any questions? Anything that, oh yeah, go ahead.
What's the star to the right of Anchorage 7?
Oh, good question. Yeah, so that's going to be Treasure Island East moorings. A lot of mooring balls there, and you'll see a lot of vessels or tugs coming in with barges from offshore, and they'll actually anchor there. They'll go north of TI here, and they'll tie off their barge here at TI East moorings. You'll either hear Treasure Island East moorings or TI East moorings. You'll usually hear TI East moorings. And then, you know, Angel Island here, a lot of the operators use Quarry Point as a good point of reference. You'll hear that on the radio. You'll hear Point Blunt. A lot of the time, Rounding Point Blunt outbound for sea, or Rounding Point Blunt upbound for Richmond, things like that. Are there any other locations that anyone has heard that you're not quite sure what's being referenced?
Cassandra, this is all incredibly useful and helpful. Like the last question about the star to the east of Anchorage 7, is there a term for the for the anchorages up in San Pablo Bay? Because there's a lot of like barge moorings up there, and I'm not sure what those are called.
Right. There is, there isn't really a lot of anchorages. I think that there's just mooring balls up there, and they'll just say we're off of San Rafael Rock Quarry.
Yeah, I think he's asking about McNear's. McNear's Quarry. There's a bunch of moorings off McNear's Quarry.
Exactly. Yes. And they'll just say, we're mooring off of, they call it the San Rafael Rock Quarry, something like that. But if there is, I think there might be, if there is a specific anchorage, I'll get back to you on that. That's something that I'll have to look into.
Well, just even knowing that there's not a specific anchorage number for that region is really helpful. So thank you.
What about the area where the Compass Rose is? The Berkeley Flats and the shoals in there, because tugs go across those.
They do, yeah. And a lot of the time, like the Keegan Foss, for example, they'll depart out of the Richmond Inner Harbor here, and they'll just cut through the flats. That's what you'll hear it on Channel 14. Oh, we're departing Richmond. We're bound for Oakland 56. We'll be taking the flats Gulf Hotel span. If they're taking the flats, they're almost 100% going for Gulf Hotel span. And the tugs aren't going to have a pilot on board. You're just going to call them by their name: Keegan Foss, Sarah Reed.
I'm pretty good, but I'm right in the middle of something. If you could call Ava on her cell phone, that would be better.
Oh, someone's not muted.
Cassandra,
yes.
One quick question. So
looks like everybody.
A vessel's only going to
question about calling a ship like a tug. Oftentimes, or usually, I'm too far to read the name. How do I reference? How do I call the tug?
That's a good question. I would say the best way to do it is kind of know where you're at. Okay, I'm in the flats. I'm south of Brook Island right here. I would say, hey, tug just southwest of Brook Island. This is blah blah blah. Channel. They're going to be monitoring channel 13 and 14. It's going to be hard to reach them on 16. They're not monitoring that. So kind of make a good geographic reference area.
Okay, that explains why I've never been successful. I've always tried hailing them on 16. Thanks.
I have a kind of practical question.
Sure.
Namely, when I see the word anchorage, I assume there's some structure that ships can anchor to besides just throwing an anchor over the side. Am I correct? And what is the difference between an anchorage and a mooring ball and just a flat spot where you throw your own anchor?
Yeah, that's a good question. The anchorages, they're just throwing their anchors directly, they're throwing them down.
Okay.
The mooring ball is an actual, anchor, and then the mooring ball's up top, and that's something that they can tie off to.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Any other questions?
So you said to use channel 14, not 16 in the bay to hail ships, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Right.
Okay. Oh no. Okay, here we go. Okay, so let's move on here. Okay, so we're going to talk about common bay movements. Oops, gosh, why doesn't that work? Okay. So here in Richmond, the ship is pulling in, and sometimes if the ship's pulling in, they won't pull straight in right here. They tend to do a turn here, and then they'll back in to the turn. So that's just something to be aware of. If you're in the Richmond Inner Harbor here and a ship is here, and all of a sudden they slow down a lot, that means they're probably about to flip it around and back into that port there. Okay. And then here in Oakland Inner Harbor, a lot of ships turning in here, a lot of large container vessels. I think the biggest one that I've seen on the watch floor is like over 1,300 feet. They're huge. And they're down here turning. And does anybody know what the name of this turning basin is? Extra credit.
Schnitzer Steel.
Yeah, awesome. Great. Okay, so yep, they're making a turn down here in Schnitzer. So for example, you hear something like Unit 24 on the Marsk Elba proceeding to Oakland 56, intends a turn at Schnitzer's, and that's it. Working tugs 67. So if you hear intend a turn at Schnitzer's or Schnitzer's turning basin, that's what they're talking about there. They're going to go into the Oakland Inner Harbor and make that turn and proceed to the dock starboard side. Any questions about the Oakland Inner Harbor or the Alameda Estuary in specific?
Yeah, when you have tugs that you can see their motor going and they're alongside a freighter, a container ship in the inner harbor, what's the key that they're about to leave or when they might leave? Are they going to, again, give you key language?
Right, absolutely. That's a good question. A lot of the ships that are alongside are doing bunkering operations, or they're fueling the ships. So, and that's something that the VTS does report. A lot of those times, those vessels are requesting minimum wakes from passing ferries. So they'll have a working channel and they'll have an estimated time of departure. Usually, if you're listening to Channel 14 and you're being an active listener on that channel, you'll hear VTS making reports to those ferries, minimum wake Oakland 56. If you hear minimum wake Oakland 56, I'm almost 80, 85, 90% sure that the Keegan Foss or some type of tug is alongside bunkering that ship. But that doesn't mean that they're just got there or they're just, you can't really tell. So unless they're backing up off the ship.
What does Oakland 56 mean?
Oh, that's a great question. See, I'm using this terminology like I'm talking to people on the watch floor. I forget. So I forget what exactly the term is, but pretty much there's like a system and it's used all around the world. It's a to label ports. So it's not going to be on your chart, but for example, right here, if you can see my mouse, this is Oakland 56, and that's just the berth number. I think it says it right here. So that just means, so this is like 55, 56, 57, 58, and then 60, 63, 65. So it's just the number of the berth inside Oakland. So if it's in its 50s right here, that means it's just right at the entrance. If you're in the 60s, then it's down here by Schnitzer's.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
So where will we look up all these terms? It sounds like there's a lot of specialized knowledge needed to understand all these locations. Like how do the captains do it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not exactly sure where you can look it up. I'm sure if you looked up, maybe the pilots have a good resource for you on their website. But all my knowledge that I've gained is from VTS and the training. So I'm not exactly sure where you can look that up. That's something I can definitely look up and follow up with Jonathan and provide that information for you guys.
The
Actually, I
pilots
can
have a little
provide.
handbook, a pocket handbook.
I can provide the handouts that are, there's a San Francisco Harbor Safety Committee that publishes 2 PDFs that are extremely useful. One of them is called Where the Heck is Collinsville? And the other one is Mariners, Do You Speak Channel 14? And they go into great detail on all of the place names and berth numbers and pier numbers and locations. And I will post those to links to them to Buzz tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Tom. I appreciate that. That's good. That's good information. I did not know about that, so I appreciate it a lot. Okay, any other questions about
So
Oakland?
I was looking for the information of departures and arrivals of ships in an area, and I had a hard time finding it on the VTS pages. Where is it exactly where you can find that information?
Yeah, so if you just look up San Francisco bar pilot list, it'll populate a PDF for you. And that's pretty useful. But, sometimes that changes. Sometimes people are, they're delayed. But it's a pretty good resource to have.
Thanks.
They do about three days in advance, but again, they change kind of a bit. So
thank you.
Quick question. You mentioned in your examples a couple of times the term downbound. What's the opposite? Upbound sounds a little strange and not very radio friendly.
They do say upbound. Yep.
Okay.
Good question. All right, I'm going to keep going here. Okay, so here's a lot of the ferry routes. And I know this, when you look at it, you're like, oh my goodness, what the heck is this? It looks like a whole bunch of squiggly lines. And that's pretty much what it is. Oops, why does this keep clicking? And we'll go through each, ferry protocol route individually, so you guys can really see what it looks like. But the purple line is, deep water traffic lane. They could be going inbound, upbound, or inbound and then upbound for Richmond, Benicia. They could be going inbound and downbound for Anchorage 9. And this is, again, another good tool and page that you guys can utilize that shows you the different routes. Is there any, this is a lot to go over, and I'm going to go over a lot of them individually. This is just a good composite image of all the routes in one.
Do you have
What
that
is the green patch just inside the Golden Gate Bridge indicate?
The green patch, that's a good question. I'm not really sure why that's on the image. I can't think of any correlation. Does anybody else in the audience know? Any guesses? Because I've never seen that before. I think maybe it's
tight boards.
It'd simply be heavy traffic area.
Yeah, that's a good guess.
Well, it's interesting because there's also those blue patches.
Yeah, that's true as well. That is something that I can look into. I'm not exactly sure. This might have been for like a specific event that someone was having. This was like areas of concern, or starting points for some type of event, and then they just laid it on this composite image. So I don't think they have any real significance in this specific instance. But we will continue on, and I will show you the ferry protocol lanes. So
talking about the ferries, do you have the equivalent for Raccoon Strait? I've never figured out which ferries leave from Tiburon to Angel Island or the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely, Jen. We can go over that. And that'll be kind of towards the middle here when we go over the Golden Gate Ferry Company. So the first one is the San Francisco Bay Ferry, and this is what they look like. These ferries here, the catamarans. So this is what their routes look like. Again, kind of a lot of scribbles, but they go a lot of places. This is something that you can just find on their website. So, and especially during COVID, they haven't been making runs to Pier 41, Oracle, Chase Center, South San Francisco, but they have been making runs from, the San Francisco Ferry Building up to Richmond. They've still been making runs up to Mare Island, Vallejo, into Oakland, Clay Street, and Gateway, Alameda. And their Harbor Bay facility is just somewhere that they go at the end of the day for maintenance, or, they're done with that ferry for the day. Does anybody have any questions about these ferry terminals in specific and the routes that they take?
I have a question on the Vallejo route, Anne. Is it the Brother Island up there at Point Pinole?
Yes.
And where do they pass in between the channels of the island?
Okay. Yeah, so a lot of the ferries, when they're upbound, they're going to go east of the Brothers. So they're going to be transiting east span of the Richmond Bridge, east of the Brothers, upbound for Vallejo. If for some reason they see some type of traffic, if there's a downbound tug, they will deviate from the ferry protocol lane, and they'll either take the west span of the Richmond Bridge, or they'll go west of the Brothers. But it just depends on what the ferry captain deems is most safe and necessary. But they will report that to VTS, and that's something that you can listen up for on channel 14.
And how do they say that? Does it say east and west of the Brothers, or how's that announced?
Yeah, so they'll call in, and they would be like, okay, let's say ferry Mare Island. Traffic, ferry Mare Island. We're approaching Southampton Shoal 3 and 4. We're outbound for Vallejo. We'll be deviating from the ferry protocol lane, and we'll be transiting west of the Brothers, upbound for Vallejo. And then traffic will just repeat that, so all the mariners can hear.
Great, thank you. That's helpful.
Any other questions on these routes in particular? Okay, I'm moving on. Okay, then we have the Golden Gate Ferry Company, Ferry Napa, Ferry Larkspur, vessels like this. So we have one route here. These vessels are going from San Francisco Pier 41. This is kind of a skew here, but they're going from San Francisco Pier 41. They'll go to Sausalito. And then these are also ferries that go to Sausalito to Tiburon. So they're just going to be cutting right up here through Raccoon Straits and going in. These are one of the ferry companies that do this route. The other ferry company is a smaller privately owned ferry company, and it's the ferry Angel Island. And they just go from Tiburon to Angel Island, Tiburon to Angel Island all day long. And they just go back and forth, and they check in with VTS every time they depart Angel Island and every time they depart Tiburon. So as long as you're listening to channel 14, you'll know when they're departing and when they've arrived. Okay. So this is one route they go. They go from here up to Sausalito. And then another route these Golden Gate ferries go is they go from San Francisco Ferry Building or Pier 41, and they go up to Larkspur as well. And so these are the lanes that they follow. And so here you can kind of see better that they'll go to Sausalito and then they'll go through Raccoon Straits here up to Tiburon. Any questions about these routes or any concerns? Okay, awesome. The last one that we have is the one that is scheduled routes is the red and white fleet, and you might have seen these. Harbor Queen, Harbor Emperor. Their routes they have two different routes. They have a 1-hour bay cruise and a 90-minute bay cruise. And they report it in that way. That's when they make their sail plan, which is something you'll hear VTS say, sail plan. They'll say, this Harbor Queen, Pier 39, 1-hour eastbound bay cruise. That means that they're gonna go from here and they're gonna go under the Golden Gate Bridge, around Alcatraz, and back to the pier. If they say they're going on a 90-minute bay cruise, that means they're departing. Doing the same thing, Golden Gate Bridge, Alcatraz, but this time they're going through Delta Echo, Alpha Bravo, back to the pier.
Did we lose her, or is that my connection?
I have her frozen as well.
It's frozen.
Same.
Can she chat?
The red and white fleet ruins everything.
Well, it's an awesome discussion.
That's cool.
So useful. Absolutely.
Yes, really helpful.
Yeah, I've got a question. Can we listen to the radio on the internet too?
I kind of doubt it, but you might be able to use your marine radio, put it on channel 14 from land. Just don't broadcast with it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the question when she comes back? I don't think there's a way to monitor marine VHF radio on the internet, but that's a great question.
But what's the site that shows the marine traffic online in live?
Oh yeah, there's a marine traffic.
I'll send the link in the email I send to Buzz tomorrow.
Okay, because that's excellent as well.
There's also a really good app for your phone called Marine Traffic. And so actually before you launch, you can just look at that and you can see what all the inbound and outbound ships are.
Yeah, I can't find her phone number.
I use that app all the time. Super handy.
Yeah, there are a bunch of sites that show that data.
If anyone's interested in the raw data, it's called AIS data, or AIS transponders, and there's a bunch of different tools for checking that out.
Yeah, it doesn't want to show, does it?
Did you say there's a smartphone app for that?
There it is.
Yeah.
Oh, multiple, yeah.
Yeah.
On Android, it's called Vessel Radar.
What was the, when she mentioned San Francisco Bar Pilot something that has the boats of the day?
Bar pilot list.
Yeah.
See, it was when did I talk
Thank you.
to her?
You won't find that list if you go to vessel traffic control or vessel traffic, because I was looking at it, I couldn't find it. So you have to find the BART pilot list. It's different.
What was that app, the Android app again?
Is it gonna come back?
Somebody just.
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah,
just-
sorry about that. I was muted. The Android app I have is called Vessel Radar.
Yeah, not a problem. We're having a nice discussion about what you've taught us so far.
And then I have an app on my iPhone called myshiptracking.com.
And that one is a
Okay.
website as well.
So I just heard from her. Her internet died. She's trying to get it back. She thinks it'll be back in about 5 minutes, and she'll announce herself, and I'll make her a co-host, and we'll start up again.
Ellen, could you repeat that? Which my ship what?
myshiptracking.com.
Thank you.
And in the same household, I use marine traffic.
And my ship tracking also exists on the web as a website.
I guess I should pause. And let's
Can
see.
you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, so sorry about that, everyone. I have no idea what happened. My Wi-Fi just cut out on me unexpectedly. So as we were saying, best ways to contact the VTS. So first off, being an active listener on channel 14, if you are constantly checking in, listening to the traffic picture and what VTS has to report to other vessels, you're going to have a good idea what's on the water. It's part of VTS protocol to constantly repeat, sail plans. So for example, if there's a ferry going from the ferry building to Oakland Clay Street, and they're going back and forth, but they don't say they copy traffic, we are obligated to give them all of the traffic in their area. So we might tell the same ferry 3, 4, 5 times of a tug that's bunkering at Oakland 56 that's requesting a minimum wake, or we might give them information about a tug that's making its turn in Snitzer's Turning Basin. Okay, so kind of going over how do we contact VTS if for some reason we're unclear of the traffic picture, if we're unsure of the intentions of a large vessel and concern for your safety. First, you want to grab the location. You can say VTS, your call sign, VTS, this is blank bridge. I see a container ship southbound. What is this vessel's sail plan? That's a good way to put it. If you ask its destination, they just might say inbound to Oakland 56. But if you ask for the vessel sail plan, they're going to give you the pilot's unit designator. So unit 36, unit Zulu. They're going to give you the ship's name. They're going to give you what bridge span intention, which is important because they could be altering their course and going Charlie Delta span instead of Delta Echo. And then they'll give you the destination. So asking for the vessel sail plan is a big one. Just a reminder to stay clear of the traffic lanes and try your best to not impede the traffic. And as a reminder, large vessels and ferries, they're going to be monitoring channel 14 and 13. So if you're trying to hail them on channel 16, they are probably not going to answer unless they were just listening to channel 16. A lot of the ferries are only monitoring 14 and 13. Okay. Okay, and then I'll save some time at the end for some additional questions, but these are just some areas to use extra caution. So we have this zone here, the security zone off of the San Francisco ferry building. So really just trying not to get too close to these piers here. This is a major maneuvering area for these ferries. They're coming in at a pretty fast rate and they're leaving at a fast rate as well. So just being extra cautious around this area. And this is Alpha Bravo span of the Oakland Bay Bridge. So just being very cautious around that area. Okay. All right, these are other
You realize that in that area, there's Pier 1.5, which is a pretty popular lunch stop for kayakers, right?
I'm sorry, what was that? It's a pretty popular spot for kayakers for lunch.
Pier 1.5, which is exactly in the area that you had on your previous slide.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So just being extra mindful of, you know, the ferries coming in and out of that terminal. That's some useful information for the ferries as well, you know, to be cognizant that there are going to be kayakers going in and out of that area.
Pier 1.5 is not in that area.
Is that not the
No.
short pier there?
It is not in that area, no.
Okay, then I stand corrected.
I thought I saw it in the area.
No.
Okay, so moving on here, we got security zone enforcement. So this is another great slide. You know, I'm not going to go into every single little thing here, but, you know, just being cognizant that there are, you know, security zones around the bridge stanchions. So, you know, Oakland Bay Bridge, don't get within 25 yards, cruise ships, tank vessels, things like that. And if there is a security zone around a specific vessel, you'll know. It'll most likely have small Coast Guard boats around it, smaller ships escorting that vessel inbound, and you'll know to stay outside of that security zone. They're pretty good at enforcing it and letting you know. And they, if you see vessels like that, you know, bringing in a ship, they'll be working on channel, you know, you can communicate with them on channel 16 if for some reason you are having any confusion about the security zones, and they'll make it known over channel 16. Okay.
So what does Coast Guard Island to channel mean?
Coast Guard Island to channel? Oh, so channel just meaning just the area around Coast Guard Island. It's 200 yards from the pier. And to channel, it's Coast Guard Island, and then inside, I honestly, whoever made the slide, I don't understand the channel portion. That doesn't make any sense. It's just 200 yards from the pier. Just don't get close to the big boats that are out there, essentially. Okay, any questions about these? Any more?
Where is this information found?
Where is the information found? Yeah, that's a good question. This is something that somebody made at VTS, and they collected it from several other things. This is something that you can call VTS directly for. It's in a lot of the publications that we have, and they can give you like more exact resources where to find each security zone. But this is a good guideline.
Wouldn't this information be on the nautical chart?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's a possibility. I'm not 100% sure. I've never utilized it before, but that's probably a good resource to look. Thank you.
Actually, I believe it's typically in the notice to mariners, not on the charts.
Yep, and that's a good resource as well.
Could you tell me about Port Chicago? Is it still active?
Yes, it is. And right now it has a larger security zone on that, which is it's currently broadcasted in the broadcast notice to mariners that the command center sends out. Okay, and then we're just going to go over a quick slide, just basic safety. Wear your life jacket, check the weather, file a plan. If you can, paddle with a partner, dress for the weather temperature, take a safety course if you can. Make sure you're able to contact help, either by cell phone or a VHF radio. Again, labeling your equipment, knowing where the shipping lanes are, kind of and the ferry protocol lanes, and watching for submerged objects such as an old pier, piling. If there is a large object in the water that you feel like could be a hazard to navigation, feel free to reach out to VTS on channel 14 and report that. You're potentially, saving a ship from hitting that object. And kind of the same way, VTS, this is blank, report of, an old pier piling in vicinity of and the location. The ferries will especially be very grateful for that report. Additional considerations, don't underestimate the speed of large vessels coming in and out of the bay. They may look big and like they're going slow, but they're catching a lot of speed. Again, large vessels are not monitoring channel 16. You're gonna have to contact them on 13 or 14. And with Rule 9, there is a brochure that I gave to Jonathan that goes over Rule 9 more in depth. And that's something to definitely review before you go out on the water. And that's pretty much all I have. I have some contact information here.
Could you explain Rule 9?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So that's something that we kind of went over a little bit in the beginning. So Rule 9 is vessels under 20 meters in, or let's see here, I can pull it out specifically, but it's vessels that are under 20 meters in length shall not impede the transit of a vessel that must transit within a navigable waterway, such as, a fairway or a channel or something like that. So not entering if your transit is going to impede the safe transit of yourself in that large vessel. And again, there's more information provided in the brochure.
How about the San Pablo Bay exclusion area we're not supposed to be in?
The exclusion area.
Yeah, there's an area that says the Coast Guard doesn't want anybody in there because they go over periodically and they drop things out of aircraft, and they have so much of San Pablo Bay is we're supposed not to be in.
Right. Yeah. And that's something that I haven't dealt with a lot at the VTS side. That's more of something that they deal with at the command center. But I know that it is in there. It's specifically labeled under 33 CFR. And that's something that I think you could just Google 33 CFR and specifically looking at what area it's charted as well. But yeah, just being cognizant of that area. And if there is a live fire gunnery exercise in that area, they will be making a broadcast over channel 16 to let mariners know that they are doing an exercise in that area.
Cassie?
Yes.
I find as a kayaker, channel 14 has been incredibly valuable, and I've spent many hours listening to it while I paddle the bay. And for the most part, I have not really needed to call VTS because the information I need is readily available, and it's mostly thanks to the ferry boats and the tourist boats. Mm-hmm. So the big ships check in when they're leaving port or when they're coming in, but they don't check in frequently. And most of the information I get is when a ferry boat or a tourist boat is about to leave the dock, and you tell them all the vessels they're going to encounter on their route. And so that's like a gold mine. And so if you know the ferry routes and you listen to channel 14, and these ferry boats are running so frequently that you get most of the information within 5 or 10 minutes of listening to 14. You pretty much know where all the big ships are going. But since COVID happened, the ferries, for a while, there weren't any ferries running. Now there's limited service and hardly any service on weekends. So you guys are kind of lonely. I mean, you can listen 10 minutes and not hear a word. So my question to you in general is, how much do you want us to call you to ask for information versus listening? And at times in the past, when it was so busy, I felt like I would be kind of getting in your way if I called you. But lately, of course, it's very different. And I wondered if you could sort of comment on kayakers using channel 14 on a routine basis to get information about ship movements.
Right, and that's a great question, Tom, and thank you for the commentary. I think that everyone at VTS, especially the operators, encourage, you know, being an active listener of Channel 14, because that's where you're going to get the most valuable, up-to-date information, and you're not going to be stepping on any toes or feel like you're impeding. If you feel like you've been listening to Channel 14 and nothing's been said for the last 15, 20 minutes and you need to know where this ship is going, absolutely, please contact VTS on Channel 14. But we encourage you to be an active listener at the same time.
So when we spot a whale, say on the water, should we be reporting it to Channel 14 or to 16 or to 69?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if that whale is in, you know, the deep water traffic lane, westbound lane, eastbound lane, you know, in some type of area where large ships could be transiting through, you can absolutely report that on Channel 14. And I don't know if anyone has heard or seen the Kitty Cat, a whale boat that goes out quite a bit. He would really appreciate that report going over Channel 14 as well. So, yep. Thank you for that question. Any other questions?
What about if you're gonna cross, let's say you're gonna go in between Treasure Island and Angel Island.
Mm-hmm.
Should we say anything, or could you ask a question if what's appropriate or not appropriate to ask VTS?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. If you're crossing from, you know, Treasure Island up to Angel Island, and there's no need to check in with VTS or anything. If you see a downbound vessel and you've been listening to Channel 14 and you still have no idea where the vessel's going or their name or anything like that, you've tried to reach out to the vessel, nothing, then absolutely reach out to VTS. Say, you know, hey, VTS, this is blank. There's a vessel downbound approaching, you know, the Alpha buoy, and you know, it's this color or whatever. If you can get a name off of it, what's their sail plan? And they should tell you as much amplifying information as they have. Did that answer your question?
Another question.
Yes, thank you.
Considering kayaks don't have vessel names or call signs,
right,
what's the best radio protocol for kayakers to use in calling in VTS?
Yeah, that's a great question, and an interesting one at that as well. I mean, if your kayak does have a name, you're more than welcome to use that. But really, it's just an identifier that you have. So if your name's Jeff, you can say VTS, this is Jeff. That's fine. You know, any identifier that they can use that you'll know that it's you that they're calling out to if they need anything. If anybody, I don't know if any other kayaker has contacted, if anybody else has a better way of doing that, you're more than welcome to chime in.
When I call, if I'm calling another vessel or VTS, I usually give a descriptor, like I'll say, you know, traffic, this is blue kayak. And then they have a handle, a name for me. If it's somebody I know, like in another kayak, I'll say, this is Kayaker Tom.
Mm-hmm.
And it lets other people know that, you know, this is between kayakers. And certainly vessel traffic, when they do respond to me, they realize, oh, this is a kayaker, as opposed to, you know, a dude in a fishing boat or, you know, a yacht or who knows.
That's good advice, Tom. Yeah, I like that.
Recently, I've heard on 14 people saying, ships saying they're going upriver or downriver.
Yeah, that's a good question, Donald. So usually if they're saying they're going upriver, they're going up towards Benicia, Martinez, going up to the deltas. If they're going downriver, that probably means they're up towards, you know, Benicia, Martinez, and they're just going downbound.
Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
All super helpful. Thank you so much, Cassandra.
Yeah,
I have a comment for Cassandra. So many years ago, Tom Boone, I don't know if you know him or not,
I do.
Provided us with a bunch of these orange stickers to go into kayaks. Well, the ones that the Coast Guard gave us were not nearly enough for our 600 plus members. So I have had them reproduced, and every single member of BASK has one of these orange stickers in their boat with their contact information on it. And now we also have an emergency contact number that goes in there in case it isn't your boat that's found, but it's your former person that you were and your boat, so that your relatives can be contacted. So you might pass on to the Coast Guard in case they don't know that kayakers will have one of these orange stickers inside the boat with contact information.
Awesome. I mean, I'm sure they would really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Well, it originally came from them, but that was a long time ago.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And we've just gone forward with it.
Good, good. That's good to hear.
I have a question about visibility. So we assume that we're invisible, especially to container ships and large ships. They can't see us, and even if they couldn't turn in time. But when it comes to ferries, are they scoping the bay as they're heading in their ferry lane? And do they see us? I mean, we always take this is a very safety conscious club, and we always take defensive reaction, but are they seeing us when we're seeing them?
That's a good question. You know, I've only been on a couple ferry rides up on the bridge there, and I've been on one ride where it was pretty low visibility, and it's hard to see. And those ferries don't slow down. You know, they have time objectives to meet, so they go full throttle. They're scanning as best as they can, but it's going to be pretty difficult, especially with low visibility. So, you know, just being really cognizant of your safety, and you said that you're very safety oriented, just staying clear of the protocol lanes. You know,
In Puget Sound, they refer to kayakers as speed bumps.
oh yeah, that's scary.
All really good information. I have a question about how does inbound and downbound change if the ship is transiting to the South Bay?
Yeah, so if like they're approaching the Oakland Bay Bridge and they're going to Anchorage 9.
Like they're going to like Redwood City, like kind of like south of, yeah.
Yeah, they would still be, you know, like if they're coming into like the Golden Gate Bridge, you might hear vessels inbound for Redwood City. But if they're like making that turn, they're going towards like Delta Echo Alpha Bravo span of the Oakland Bay Bridge, you might hear downbound once they start proceeding south.
Okay. Thanks.
So down is always south, or is it down current?
Right. I think sometimes people accidentally use them interchangeably, but it's supposed to be down current. Thank you, Jack.
North is at the top.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
In the South Bay, there is not a whole lot of current. I mean, there are smaller
Right.
creeks or something like that. So their downbound would be going north. Is that what you're saying?
No. I say sometimes people use them interchangeably.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, that didn't mean to cause confusion there.
Yeah. I think we should probably take a few more questions, and then it's getting kind of late. Would you take anyone have a few more? And we'll...
Well, if there's no more questions, thank you everybody so much for listening to me. I know this is kind of a long-winded and sometimes dry information, but useful information. And please don't hesitate. You know, the VTS phone number is there on the slide. If you have any questions, I'm sure the watch supervisor or the operators will be eager to answer your questions. And I'll send out this PowerPoint as well, so everyone can get this information.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks a
Cassandra.
lot. Super useful, not too long-winded or anything.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Oh, we love the information. Okay, Cassandra, if you could stop sharing your screen for a moment. Thank you. All right, that's the end of our meeting. The last thing is just the our next planning meeting, Yuan, I think it's Sunday, June 6th. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so more information will be on the website about that. So stay safe. Thanks for coming, and see you on the water.
Thanks, Jonathan. It's great
Okay.
meeting. Jonathan.
See y'all.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
y'all.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Jonathan, thanks, Cassie.
Meeting, thank you.
Thanks. Excellent meeting.
Great meeting. Thank you so much.
Good job, Jonathan.
That was fun. Tell Tom that was really great.
Yeah,
that worked out better than it was such a complicated thing to plan. I was like, oh my God, is it going to work?
Yeah,
But, but it did. So we could keep doing that.
Yeah. It was really good how people were forced into rooms.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
even more discussion oriented, maybe, I mean, at least until COVID is gone, so yeah. Zoom
Maybe
is good for
just
something.
post some, like a simple a question that everybody, without a lot of explanation, but just a question that everybody could.
Well,
chat
Ellen,
about.
if you want to do an environmental oriented one, a question about wildlife or nature, you could come up with one.
All right, I'll think about it.
Yeah.
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 Or just why?
Why?
Why? Just why?
Open-ended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell he lived at the Zen Center there? Yeah. All right.
We could have a really, is Greenland or Europaddle better?
Oh yeah, that'll be a
Well,
45-minute. That'd be like Buzz Live. That'd be terrible.
Yes.
Okay, well, I gotta end this meeting and end the recording. Good work, Tom. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Go and
Thank you, everybody.
unpack your gear. Okay, bye
Yeah.
everyone.